Hello everybody, welcome back to Mr. Y Reads. I'm Mr. Y. Phoenix, chapter 35. So at the end of chapter 34, after a huge battle, we met King Theobroma. The last line was, "Boy, here I am. I am your king. I am Theobroma." Chapter 35. And there in front of them, at the end of a line of troopers, stood Theobroma, the Axer King. There was something surprising about the way he looked. He was large and imposing, as tall as Captain Knox and as broad as Frolics. His horns were huge curving crescents that pointed straight up at the sky. But he did not look wild or savage or terrifying, as he did in the government vidpics. No, he looked like an old-fashioned king. On his head was a crown that glittered like starlight. On his shoulders were robes of black velvet. Most unexpected was his face. His features seemed full of compassion. His eyes were not mad and staring. They were warm ruby red like the last moments of a summer sunset. Even from this distance, Lucky could feel the power of his gaze. The king was looking at him like he couldn't take his eyes off him. And there was something about him that Lucky couldn't look away from either. Sorry. Jay? You come to listen to reading? Good boy. His eyes were not mad and staring. They were warm ruby red like the last moments of a summer sunset. Even from this distance, Lucky could feel the power of his gaze. The king was looking at him like he couldn't take his eyes off him. And there was something about him that Lucky couldn't look away from either. A charisma that commanded his attention completely. "Put down your cannon," the king ordered his forces. His voice so deep and quiet, so rich and strong. It compelled everyone's attention. "Bow down before the Astraeus." The troopers turned to look at Lucky. His body was glowing, pulsing, the solar fires in his heart still burning. They couldn't look at him directly, but they bowed down before him as the king strode past their ranks towards him through the snow. He carried something very familiar in his hands, a thick black disc shimmering with silver light. Lucky stared at the king with the astrolabe in his hands, and a terrible thought began to form in the back of his mind. The astrolabe. His father's astrolabe. What was it Garlus had said? He is waiting for you. He is expecting you, even now. But are you absolutely certain you wish to find him? The king's eyes were shining as he looked at Lucky through the blizzard, as if Lucky was the most special person in the universe. As if he loved him. No, it couldn't be. And yet, it would make sense of so much. "At last," said the king softly, as the snow swirled all around him. "What is mine has come back to me. I have waited so long. My son." His words made Lucky's heart shiver. "But my mother's human," he protested as he stared into those sunset red eyes. "I'm human." Yet even as he spoke, he remembered what Frolics and Bixa had said about their own parents. The genetic line always follows the mother's side. "Yes," said the king. "I loved a human woman once. When she realized the war was coming, she tried to protect you. She ran away with you. And though I searched and searched, she hid you too well for me to find. But I always prayed you would return one day. And the instant I saw my old astrolabe, I knew in my heart that day had come." So it was true. This was his father. Not poor lost Major Dashwood, but Theobroma, the Axer King. The fire inside him went out. The great solar wind dropped down. Lucky took the power back into himself and felt again the exhaustion, the terrible pain that always came after these moments of incandescence. His hands, his head, his heart, every part of him hurt. He fell forward into his father's arms, naked and shivering in the snow. The king caught him. He covered Lucky with his own robes and lifted him from the ground. He carried him as if he was as light as a feather. The snow swirled down around them, but Lucky was not cold, not in those arms. It was as if everything else just melted away, as if no one else was there, just him and his father held him close, like he was a treasure. Bixer bristled beside them, needles flashing danger signals. "If you hurt my friend," she warned the king, though he towered over her, "I'll make you pay." The troopers touched their triggers at her words, but the king nodded respectfully at Bixer. "You are brave, warrior girl," he said, "and a fearsome fighter. I have seen what you can do. Believe me, I will not hurt him, for I love him as much as you do." He turned to Lucky. "You chose your friends well, my son." Bixer flushed. Bazooka spat sparks. Far above them, Aquarius was screaming out supernova light, brighter and whiter and closer to death than ever. Lucky was almost unaware of all this, so powerful was his father's presence. But Bixer was not. "We came to find you for a reason, King Theobroma," she said. "We got things to say to you. Important things." "Of course you do," said the king. "Come with me. We have much to discuss and very little time." He took them to the grandest looking cabin on the edge of the encampment at a foot of a great ice mountain. He left his commanders outside with instructions to bring food and drink and fresh clothing for Lucky.